this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between an R script and an R notebook. And so this is what we talked about that first day of class in lab. I'll show you how to create both types of files and how to save them for that lab 1 submission. So you'll notice here that I have RStudio open, and I've also opened that module 1.1 script. This is the script file that's available in that lab 1 section on Canvas. And so if you'll remember in class, a couple things I had you change in the script was I did have you add your name, and then as we went through here, there were a couple extra things that I asked you to add in. If you missed some of those, that is perfectly fine. Really the purpose of this lab assignment is for you to create a script as well as create a notebook. So as a reminder, a script is really just a text file, and that's where we're going to save all of the code for the class is going to be in scripts. So here we have that example script, and one thing to notice is up here we have the name of the script, and you'll see that its file extension is R. So we have the name of the script, .r. A .r file, that's how you'll know that this one is a script. So any of the scripts that we write are going to have that .r extension, and any time that I refer to a script, that's one quick way to check that you do have the correct file type. So the first thing you'll want to do, if you haven't already, and you would have done this in class, is you do want to save this somewhere on your computer where you know it is. And so part of that homework 1 assignment is to think a little bit about file storage and how you want to organize everything for the class. So I'm going to save this as Amanda example, and you'll notice here that when I go to save this, I'm just going to give it the file name, save, and notice up here, even though I changed the name of the file, it still has that .r extension. Now, just for completeness, most of the time I'm going to provide you with scripts, but if you did want to create a new script that was blank to start out with, you could go up to File, New File, and you'll notice one of the options is R script, and that will create a new one for you. So the next thing we did was we talked about R notebooks. What R notebooks are is they're a nice way to combine code with written text and create reports that you could share with someone. So to create an R notebook, you go up to File, New File, and notice the second one down is R notebook. Every time you open up an R notebook, it is going to kind of have a template here. And so the creators of the R notebooks, they place this template here just to remind you what the different pieces are. So if you read through this text, that's exactly what the text is telling you. And so you'll notice up here is where you put in the title. So here I could call this Amanda's R notebook. Here we've got some just a little bit of information about chunks of code and things, and we'll look more at these later. But what I had you do in lab was to actually delete out some pieces. So I'll go through what I had you do in lab here in just a moment. But first I want to talk about saving this file and the reason we use these. So the first thing I'm going to do is save this notebook. So just like before, I'm going to go to Save As. And this time I'm going to call this one Amanda Example Notebook. And notice when I save this one, it does not have a .r extension, it has a .rmd. So RMDs are the files that we're going to use. These are actually the notebook files, and we're going to use these to create these nice reports. So to do this, we have to do what's called knitting. And so if you click up here on Preview, you'll notice there's a knit to HTML, a knit to PDF, and a knit to Word option. You can use any of these three. Do know though, to knit to PDF, you do have to have MikTeX installed on your computer, and so I talked a little bit about MikTeX in some of the files. Most people will probably knit to HTML or knit to Word. In either case, what is going to happen is the .rmd file, that information is going to be translated into either an HTML document, PDF document, or a Word document, and what those documents will do is they will combine code, output, and written text. So as an example, if we click on Knit to HTML, it will take it a moment and an HTML document will open up. And you'll notice here that if you compare the text in the .rmd file and the code, you'll see that all of that information is also here in this notebook, but in a much nicer form that you could share with someone. So when we knit a .rmd and create a notebook, if you go on your computer to where you have the files located, so I'm going to open up my File Explorer. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to open up my File Explorer. I'm going to go to where all of my files are for this class. And so you will notice that here I have the R script we created earlier. We see that it is an R file. I also have here the .rmd file, but also in this folder is the .html file, which is this file right here. So when you turn in a notebook, what you're going to want to turn in is the HTML file. And notice if I double click this, it will open up in Google. All right. So there's the example of the .html. You could also knit these as a Word document. Again, it takes it just a moment, but here's what the Word document looks like. Again, the exact same information, just as a Word document. And so if you want to turn in the Word document version, this is the version that you would turn in. Or just for completeness, if you have MikTeX or MacTeX installed on your computer, you could also create a PDF. And here's what the PDF would look like. So again, the .rmd file, it's used to create these nice reports, and it translates the information. So for the lab and for assignments, when I ask you to turn in the script and the notebook, the files that you're going to be turning in are the .r file, which is the script, and then you'll turn in either the .pdf, the .html, or the .word file. The .rmd file that you use to create the notebook, this one you will not turn in. This is the file that you're using to create the notebook. If you create the notebook and you turn the notebook file, then I know on your computer you have the .rmd, and I don't necessarily need that file. So just as a reminder, what I ask you to do in lab so that you can turn these in, I ask you to delete out some of the template, and in general when you create a notebook, that's what you're going to want to do, is delete out the template pieces to create the notebook with what you needed. And so first I ask you to delete out this first part, and I think I had you put this is an example notebook, or just some example text here, just as long as you've got something. Now this next piece in between this line and this line is where you can put in R code that will generate output. So if we go back to our R script that we created, we had an R script where we looked at the number of hours we are in class each week. So I had you copy that and then paste it inside of here. Now do be careful when you paste. You don't want to get rid of this line or this line, because that's what lets the document know that you're going to put code inside of it. And then I just had you delete out everything in the bottom. So the .rmd file probably looks something like this. And then again, we are going to knit it. So notice this time when I knit it, it looks different than it did before. And the information in the notebook is exactly the information that's in the .rmd file. So that's what the .html looks like. And again, you could knit to Word. Oops. Click the down button. You can knit to Word or HTML or to PDF. Any of these are perfectly fine. So again, when you turn in your assignment on Canvas, you want to make sure that you turn in two files. The first one is going to be the R script. That is the .r file that you save. The second file you turn in is going to be the notebook, and the notebook can be in one of three file types. It can either be a .html, a .pdf, or it can be a .word. Do not turn in the .rmd file. So the .rmd file is not what I'm looking for here. When I ask for the notebook, I am asking for it actually knitted into one of the three acceptable formats. So as always, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you next week.